Hi there, I'm Malis, and this is how I found out my husband planned our divorce before he even told me he was unhappy. One morning, I saw the papers, perfectly printed, perfectly hidden. So I packed my things, left him an empty house, and that's when I learned about the other woman, and the offshore accounts, and the fake story he told my colleagues behind my back. But the worst part? He smiled through it all, like it was just business. What would you do if the man you loved decided to erase you, piece by piece? Would you walk away or fight back? Let me tell you what I did. The rain hadn't stopped all day. I stood in the kitchen, fingers wrapped around a chipped white mug, the scent of chamomile barely cutting through the weight in the air. The soft hum of the fridge and the occasional ping of raindrops against the window were the only sounds in the room. Ronan said he was going to bed early, claimed he was exhausted after a long week of back-to-back meetings. That's what he always said when he wanted to avoid talking. I didn't press. I had stopped pressing a while ago. But something didn't sit right tonight. A kind of silence that wasn't just tired. It was calculated. I told myself not to overthink it. But then I saw the glow. From the hallway, just a sliver of light bled into the darkness. His phone, face up on the nightstand. He never left it unlocked. Not since last fall. But tonight, maybe he got careless. Or maybe he thought I was. I stepped closer, my breath caught in my throat, and glanced down. One message, one line. She doesn't suspect anything. Documents are almost ready. My stomach clenched so violently, I had to grip the doorframe. My heart didn't just pound, it thundered. I stared at the words like they belonged to someone else's life. Someone naive. Someone blind. I backed away before the screen dimmed and the room returned to shadow. I didn't sleep. I laid next to him, stiff, listening to the rhythm of his breath. Slow, steady, like nothing had shifted. His arm brushed mine at one point, and I nearly flinched. Not because of fear, because of betrayal. Because I realized in that exact moment, I was married to a man who was preparing to leave me without the decency of a conversation. And worse, he thought I was too stupid to see it coming. The next morning, Ronan strolled into the kitchen like he hadn't just lit our marriage on fire in silence. "Hey, babe, want me to make you an omelet?" His tone was light, like we were fine, like last night hadn't happened. "No, I'm good," I muttered, not looking up from my coffee. He hummed, opened the fridge, and made small talk about a podcast he was listening to, some nonsense about financial hacks for couples. I barely heard him. While he showered, I went into his office. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. I knew what I was looking for, and I found it. Stacked neatly beside his printer tray was a manila folder. Inside, divorce documents, unfiled, unsigned, but ready. My name printed at the top in bold. He didn't even bother to hide them. There wasn't a single note, no explanation, not even a scribble. Just logistics, dates, division of assets, and a note on shared custody of the dog. I sat on his chair for a full minute, clutching the folder to my chest, breathing through the pain. The man I shared a bed with was preparing his exit, and I was meant to go down quietly. Disappear with grace. Sign without questions. That night, I cooked dinner, set the table like always, lit a stupid candle like I used to do when we first moved into this house. He laughed at something on the news, passed me the salt, ate like everything was fine, and I watched him, really watched him, and saw it clearly for the first time. He was already gone. The man I married had left months ago. What remained was a hollow version. Smiling, polite, strategic. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I needed to know how far this had gone. What I was up against. The papers were printed. All that was left was my signature. And my silence. But I wasn't going to give him either. I woke before dawn, while the sky was still blue-black, and the air in the house felt damp from the rain that never seemed to stop in Portland. Ronan had already left for one of his early meetings, The kind he always said was confidential real estate strategy. I used to believe him. I used to believe a lot of things. I didn't cry when I folded my clothes, didn't pause as I slipped the box of my mother's jewelry into my duffel. I moved with the kind of calm that comes after you've shattered inside and found nothing left to salvage. Research drives, trust documents, personal journals, a photo of me and my dad when I was 12, taken at Cannon Beach. Everything else could stay. The house didn't feel like mine anymore. It hadn't in a long time. I didn't leave a note. I didn't slam a door. I left the keys on the entry table beside that stupid brass lamp Ronan insisted we keep, because it made the place feel expensive. It never did. As I closed the door behind me, a gust of cold air hit my face. I didn't flinch, just walked down the steps, one foot in front of the other, like I wasn't walking away from my whole life. Because truthfully, I wasn't. I was walking away from his version of it. Lena opened her door before I could knock. She pulled me into a hug, no questions asked. "Spare room's ready," she said, voice soft. "Bathroom's stocked. Take a shower, eat something, or just lie down. Whatever you need." "I need to find out what he's been hiding," I said. We sat at her kitchen table, side by side, two laptops open. She was faster with numbers, sharper with accounts, and twice as ruthless as any friend I'd ever had. It took her less than 2 hours. "There," she said, tapping her screen. "He bought a condo downtown, high-rise, full-floor unit, closed 3 months ago." I leaned in. "Under his name?" She nodded. "Just his. But the funds came from the shared account. Joint investments, real estate trust, he used it all." I didn't feel shocked. Not anymore. Just hollow. 3 months ago, we were at couples therapy, talking about reconnecting over long weekends. He already had a new home waiting, probably new towels, maybe even a new toothbrush. I sat back, arms folded, the bile rising in my throat. "He didn't just plan to leave," I said. "He planned to steal." Lena gave me a look. "He probably thinks you'll just roll over and let him." That night, I lay on her guest bed, staring at the ceiling fan spin in slow, hypnotic circles. My phone buzzed once. "Ronan, where are you?" I stared at the message. Not even a fake show of concern. "No, I'm worried. No, let's talk." Just 4 words that reeked of control. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my secure email and sent a message to the woman whose name I had only read once but would never forget. Dahlia Trent, family law. The best in the state. I wrote 2 words. "I'm ready." He thought I would sit and wait while he emptied our life. I emptied it first. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of fear, not even out of sadness. Just that bone-deep stillness when your body knows everything has changed but hasn't yet figured out what comes next. By the time the sun broke over the rooflines, I was sitting cross-legged on Lena's guest bed, laptop warm against my thighs, inbox open. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. Maybe legal updates, maybe paperwork from the bank, maybe something from Ronan that read like remorse. But none of those came. What did arrive, however, was far more chilling. Subject line: "You don't know him." Not really. No sender name, no signature. Just a burner email address I didn't recognize. The message was short, precise, almost too calm. "He's done this before. Divorce, financial gutting, same playbook, different wife. Check the name Silas Varn." That was it. No context, no threats, just that. I sat frozen, reading the lines over and over. Divorce, financial gutting, same playbook. I whispered the name aloud. Silas Varn. It sounded vaguely familiar, like something I'd heard in passing but never paid attention to. I knew Ronan had worked with a handful of real estate consultants over the years, most of them barely vetted. He called them visionaries. I called them vultures. I flagged the email and forwarded it to Lena with 2 words. Dig him. She was already in the kitchen, coffee in hand, when I came out. "You look like you saw a ghost," she said, sliding a mug toward me. "I think I did," I replied, opening my laptop again. Check your inbox. She was faster than me by miles. 10 minutes in, she was already deep into legal archives, business licenses, court transcripts. I just stared, stunned, as the puzzle began fitting itself. Silas Varn, former financial advisor, disbarred in 2 states, sued for fraud. Ronan's name showed up twice in archived press releases as a business affiliate. My skin crawled. Lena pulled up a local article from 5 years ago. A woman named Julia, Silas's former partner's wife, lost everything in a sudden divorce. The accounts had been drained months before the filing. She'd had no idea until her cards started declining at the grocery store. My stomach turned. This wasn't a one-time betrayal. It was a formula, a well-rehearsed act, and I was just the latest cast member. "You married a con," Lena muttered, not looking away from the screen. "No," I said, correcting her. "I married a man who knew how to act like love was leverage." That afternoon, I opened the box of documents I'd brought from the house. I hadn't had the stomach to look before, but now, with my fingers steady, I began sorting everything by date, category, bank account. I created folders, printed, labeled. I found transaction reports from our joint accounts. Money moved in neat, strategic chunks. I screenshotted everything, captured the timestamps, lined them up next to the first emails about the investments he never mentioned. And then I found the file from his office, the divorce packet I wasn't meant to see. I placed it on top of the pile like a title page to a horror novel I hadn't realized I'd been starring in. Later that week, I walked into Dahlia Trent's office for the first time. Her receptionist barely looked up when she said, "She's waiting for you." Dahlia sat behind a glass desk, with not a single item out of place. She didn't offer me tea, didn't ask how I was doing. She just studied me like a strategist eyeing a chessboard. I slid the folder across the glass. It's all there, the accounts, the lies. His voice, if you need it. I'm not here to make him feel bad. I'm here to make him lose. She opened the folder, skimmed a few pages, then leaned back with the ghost of a smile. Then we're going to play smarter than they ever expected. By the time I stepped out of Dahlia's office, the fog outside had thinned, but not the one in my chest. That ghost of a smile she gave me still echoed in my head. We weren't playing defense anymore. We were setting traps. But I didn't expect Ronan to strike again so quickly, or so low. The next morning, I was in my office at the university, sorting through funding paperwork, when Clarissa from the Social Sciences Department knocked on my door. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Hey," she said casually, lingering in the doorway. "So, your husband came by our floor yesterday?" I blinked. "He what?" "Yeah, said he wanted to discuss potential alumni donors and something about your research visibility. Honestly, it was a little weird. He knew a lot about your current grants. Too much." My heart dropped. "He said you two were consolidating financial records," she added. "Told Dr. Kumar that you were merging some of your department's discretionary budgets for estate planning." Estate planning? What the hell was he doing? I thanked her, shut the door, and immediately walked down to the dean's office. The assistant didn't even flinch when I asked. "Oh, right," she said. "He seemed informed. Thought you were co-authoring something for the Foundation's annual report." He was laying a foundation, a narrative, one where I looked complicit. I didn't finish the rest of my office hours that day. That afternoon, I got the email. From Chair of Faculty Affairs, subject, Professional Conduct. "Hi, Milas, just a courtesy heads up. There's been some chatter among trustees. Someone's raised concerns about a possible conflict of interest regarding your research fund distribution. It's not formal yet, but you may want to prepare some clarifications." That someone was obvious. Ronan was trying to turn the university against me, because he knew it was the one thing I still had left that gave me purpose. He wasn't just severing the marriage, he was coming for my name. I slammed my laptop shut so hard the ceramic on my desk trembled. Later that evening, I sat across from Lena and Dahlia in Lena's apartment. Dahlia was stirring her tea like it was an afterthought. Calm, focused. Her eyes didn't blink once when I read her the email. "He's not trying to leave quietly," I said. "He's trying to ruin me on his way out." "Because if he burns your credibility," Dahlia said, "you'll be too busy putting out the fire to fight back." I nodded. "I want to warn him." Dahlia handed me her tablet. I took a breath, then typed, "Subject: Contact to Ronan Vaylor, Ronan. Do not approach anyone affiliated with my workplace again. If you do, the next time you hear from me, it will be during formal discovery." Mailus, I hit send. 2 minutes later, he replied, "Don't be dramatic. It was just a conversation." That's what they always say. He underestimated how much I had left to lose and how far I'd go to protect it. I closed my laptop and sat in silence for a long time, just listening to the faint hum of traffic outside Lena's apartment window. I had warned him. I had set the line. And, true to form, Ronan stepped right over it. The next morning, I drove back to the house, our house, to retrieve a few boxes I hadn't had the chance to grab the first time. He hadn't changed the locks. He probably still thought I'd come back. Or maybe he just liked the illusion of control. The place was quiet. Too quiet. I walked into my old study, papers still stacked where I left them, books undisturbed. The only thing that felt off was the stillness. It was thick, like it had been holding its breath since I left. I reached for a binder on the lower shelf, and that's when I noticed it. A faint red flicker near the wall outlet. I leaned in. Tucked just behind the row of books was a slim pen-shaped device, barely the size of a lighter. A voice recorder, still active. I stared at it, heat rising in my face, my pulse drumming in my ears. He was still listening, even after I'd left, even after he filed the paperwork. He was still trying to control the narrative, or maybe collect insurance in case he needed to paint me as unstable. "You disgusting coward," I muttered, yanking it free from the wall and shoving it in my bag. I didn't take the rest of the boxes. I didn't care anymore. Let him keep the furniture, the art he never appreciated, the wine he never stopped pretending to enjoy. I had what I came for, proof that this wasn't just personal, it was invasive, calculated. That night, I drove to see my mother. Elira lived about 40 minutes outside Portland in a small ivy-wrapped cottage that smelled like cinnamon and dried lavender. She had a strength in her that didn't shout. It waited, observed, outlasted. She didn't ask questions when she saw my face. We sat in the kitchen. She poured tea into chipped china cups we'd used since I was a kid, and then she reached for the envelope. "I got this last week," she said, sliding it toward me. "Thought it was just junk at first." I opened it, my hands going numb as I read. A letter from a law office, requesting that Elira confirm succession preferences in her estate. Signed, dated, processed, 2 weeks ago. "I never signed anything," she said softly. "I've only spoken to you about the trust, no one else." My throat tightened. "This isn't your signature." "I know that," she said, "but I wanted you to see it before I burned it." I stared at the page again, bile rising. Ronan hadn't just targeted me. He'd forged my mother's name, tried to meddle with her legacy. And for what? A slice of a property that was never his to begin with? "He thinks I'm weak because I'm old," she said, lifting her cup. "He forgot I raised you." That broke something in me. Not sadness, not pain. Resolve. I called Dahlia as soon as I got back to Lena's. She answered on the second ring. "Talk to me." "I need you to file a formal notice. If he comes near any of my family's legal documents again, we escalate to criminal charges. I'm not bluffing." There was a pause on the line. "Good," she said, "because neither are we." "And tell him we know about Silas," I added. Another pause. Then her voice came through, cool and sharp. "I'll make sure the message is received loud and clear." He started a war. I was just learning how to fight. The first time I noticed, it was in the hallway between my office and the faculty lounge. 3 grad students I'd mentored for years suddenly ducked their heads when they passed me. No eye contact, no small talk. Just silence, followed by whispers I wasn't supposed to hear. By noon, it was everywhere. Someone from the communications department stopped me near the stairwell. "Malis, look, I'm not trying to pry, but there's a rumor about you. Something about mismanaging grant funds?" Her voice was hesitant, like she wasn't even sure if she believed it, but just enough to plant the doubt. Just enough to make me feel like the walls were starting to close in. I kept my face neutral. "Rumors are cheap. The truth has receipts." She blinked, then nodded awkwardly and walked away. Back in my office, I locked the door and pulled up my emails. Nothing new, no official notice, just silence. The kind of silence that meant someone was building a story behind closed doors. Quiet meetings, side comments, strategic damage. This had Ronan's fingerprints all over it. He was playing dirty now, whispers instead of evidence, painting me as unstable, dishonest, and with just enough distance to keep his own hands clean. That afternoon, my phone rang. "Lena." Her voice was tight. "The safe. Milas. Check your backup copies. The file's gone." I stood up so fast I knocked over my chair. "What file?" "The one you gave me 2 weeks ago. Asset records, the investment logs you wanted locked up. Remember? I checked the safe this morning. The folder's missing." My throat went dry. "Was there a break-in?" "No sign of one. Nothing else was touched." There were only 2 people who knew the combination. Me and Ronan. He hadn't just spread rumors. He was stealing evidence. I barely slept the rest of the week. I triple-checked every document I had, scanned hard copies, encrypted everything I could. I called Dahlia twice a day. She told me to stay calm, but I could hear the edge in her voice too. Friday came. The courtroom felt colder than I remembered. Ronan sat 2 tables over, hair neatly slicked back, suit probably tailored just for the occasion. His lawyer stood and handed over a thick file like it was a winning hand. "Your Honor, we have new documentation suggesting Mrs. Vaylor redirected joint assets into private trusts shortly before separation." I could feel my stomach twist, but I kept my face still. Dahlia didn't blink. She rose slowly, like she had all the time in the world. "We've had our own forensic analyst review the submitted evidence, and we'd like to show the court the original source logs." The judge motioned her forward. The analyst, a young woman with a no-nonsense tone, explained everything. Calm, detailed, surgical. "These transactions reference accounts that didn't exist at the time the alleged movement took place," she said, flipping through charts. "In fact, several of the timestamps fall outside of known operating hours, and IP traces show edits from an unregistered device." The courtroom fell into silence. The judge stared at Ronan's lawyer. "Are you submitting falsified financial records to this court?" His lawyer stammered. We were under the impression they were accurate." "Motion denied," the judge snapped, "and your client is now responsible for all legal fees related to this motion." Ronan didn't move. His jaw clenched. His hand curled tight around the edge of the table until his knuckles turned white. I didn't look at him. I didn't need to. He thought he was dismantling my life. He just handed me the hammer. I was still riding the weight of that courtroom win when I came home 3 days later to find a note taped to my door. No envelope, no name. Just a single typed sentence on crisp white paper. "You're going to regret this." My fingers curled around the edges, pulse pounding in my ears. I didn't need to guess who it was from. The font might have been clean, the delivery anonymous, but the venom was unmistakably his. I didn't call the police, not yet. I scanned it, filed it, and added it to the growing folder labeled, "If he pushes again." That night, for the first time in weeks, Ronan broke his silence. His text came in just after midnight, when the streets outside were slick with mist, and I was lying in bed staring at the ceiling. "I never lose, Malis. You should have known that." I didn't respond. I let his words hang in the silence, like a threat that had already expired. Because here's the thing, when someone tells you who they are, you believe them. But when they show you who they'll become when they start to lose, you prepare for war. The next morning, I got the call. The number flashed across my screen. Portland General Hospital. My heart sank. Elira Valor? The voice asked. We just wanted to inform you that your mother had an unexpected visitor yesterday. He said he was a family friend, left flowers, stayed almost an hour. I swallowed. Did he give a name? No, but your mother insisted on no follow-up visits unless pre-approved. Just thought you'd want to know. I drove straight to her cottage. She was in the garden, pruning lavender with the calm of someone who'd lived through worse. He came, she said, not looking up. I crouched beside her. What did he say? He asked about my will. That hit harder than I thought it would. I clenched my jaw. Did you answer? She clipped a branch with precision. Not one damn word. But I saw the tremble in her hand, the one she didn't want me to notice. He thinks if he shakes the foundation, I'll crumble, I said. She nodded. Then show him you've got steel in your bones. I hugged her tight before leaving. I couldn't let her see the rage settling into my chest like a furnace. That was mine to carry. By the time I got back, Lena had already called twice. When I picked up, her voice was brisk, too brisk. Multiple transfers, Malus, all offshore, Cayman accounts, shell companies, one set up months before you even found the divorce papers. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. And he moved assets before even telling me he wanted out? Not just moved, he buried them. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I printed every document, every timestamp, every digital trail. Then I walked into Dahlia's office and dropped the file onto her desk like it weighed 100 pounds. She raised an eyebrow. Is this what I think it is? I nodded. I don't want to just win anymore. I want him accountable. I want the IRS to know exactly who they're dealing with. Her mouth curved into a razor-sharp smile. Then let's bring them in. And while we're at it, let's make sure his little empire burns from the books up. He tried to destroy everything I loved. Now, I'm coming for everything he built. The invitation had been sent weeks ago, before the court ruling, before the note, before I understood just how far Ronan was willing to go. It was a formal gala held at the Portland Art Museum, a fundraiser for higher education initiatives. The kind of event where people wore forced smiles, drank overpriced wine, and pretended everything was polished. I almost didn't go, but then I remembered who else might show up. And suddenly, I knew I needed to be there. Not for the university, for myself. The room shimmered with gold uplighting and murmurs of wealth. I recognized faces from my department, a few board members, even donors I hadn't seen in years. I smiled, nodded politely, kept my champagne close but untouched. And then the crowd shifted. The murmurs changed. He entered like it was opening night. Ronan, in a crisp tuxedo, one hand tucked into his pocket, the other draped casually around the waist of a woman who looked at least 15 years younger. She was stunning, tall, perfect red lipstick. Her dress shimmered when she moved, and Ronan beamed as he kissed her cheek in front of everyone. He turned to a small cluster of faculty near the entrance. "This is Isabel," he said, loud enough for half the room to hear. "My partner in both real estate and life." A few people smiled awkwardly. A few looked at me. I could feel it, eyes measuring my reaction, waiting for me to flinch, but I didn't. I finished my champagne, excused myself from the corner I had been hovering in, and walked toward the podium where a university rep was nervously shuffling cards. "Dr. Valor?" she asked quietly. "You're still okay to say a few words about our research grant expansion?" I smiled, steady. "Absolutely." A few minutes later, the mic buzzed gently as I stepped up to speak. My palms were dry. My voice? Even. "Thank you all for being here tonight," I began. "It's easy to measure growth in dollars, in signed checks and named wings. But real growth, the kind that lasts, comes from something else. I scanned the crowd. Ronan was near the back now, drink in hand, expression unreadable. It comes from integrity, I continued, the kind that doesn't buckle under pressure, the kind that holds its ground, even when someone decides your reputation is theirs to destroy. People shifted in their seats. Even when the lies wear suits and smile for cameras. There was polite applause, uneasy glances. I stepped down from the podium, walking back to the AV desk where Lena stood waiting. "Ready?" she asked under her breath. "Play it!" On the large projection screen behind the podium, the university's logo flickered out, replaced by an audio waveform. A click. Then his voice. Ronan's voice. "As long as she doesn't check the offshore transfers, I'm good. She'll sign whatever's in front of her. She always does." A silence dropped over the room, so thick you could hear someone set their wineglass down 3 tables away. No one clapped. No one blinked. I watched his face as the realization sank in. His smile flattened. His jaw twitched. He didn't move, but everyone else did. Phones came out. Board members whispered. His date pulled her arm from his and stepped aside, barely meeting his eyes. He turned toward me, his eyes burning. "You think this is over?" he hissed, voice just loud enough for only me to hear as he passed. I didn't hesitate. I think it's finally begun." He built a stage to humiliate me. I turned it into his trial. The sky over Portland was gray again, low clouds stretching like quiet grief over the city. 2 weeks had passed since the gala. 2 weeks since the night Ronan watched his empire begin to sink under the weight of his own voice. Now I sat in Dahlia's office, staring at the last thing tying us together. The final divorce decree. It lay in the center of the table, surrounded by silence, like a body at a wake. Ronan had signed it last week. No delay, no note, no final plea. Just his signature, bold and sharp, like he was carving himself out of the wreckage. Dahlia slid it toward me. "It's over. You came out clean. He walks away with nothing." I nodded slowly, eyes on the black ink. The court had ruled in my favor. Every asset protected, every lie documented. His fraudulent accounts were now being investigated at the federal level. If there was any justice left in this world, the next papers he'd sign would be in the presence of a federal prosecutor. But this was my closure. I picked up the pen. My fingers hovered for just a breath. Then I signed. The last signature I'd ever write beside his. "He doesn't deserve closure," I said quietly, "but I do." Sunday came with sunlight, crisp leaves, and the distant sound of birds that hadn't yet migrated. I visited my mother like I always did. Elira was in the garden, kneeling in old jeans and gloves, worn soft from years of work. Her tomatoes were gone for the season, but the lavender had stubbornly hung on. She didn't say anything when she saw me, just moved aside on the bench so I could sit. For a long while, we didn't talk. We just sat. 2 women, generations apart, who had both lost things they shouldn't have had to fight for. Eventually, she broke the silence. "You know," she said, "your grandmother stayed with a man like him for 40 years. She used to say, 'He doesn't hit me, that's enough.'" I looked at her, throat tightening. "You didn't just break a pattern, Malis," she said. "You broke the silence that let it live." A wind passed through the trees, and for once it didn't sting. I nodded. Not in pride, not in victory, in acknowledgement. A week later, I was home, sorting through mail I'd been ignoring. Among the stack was a small, unmarked package, no return address, just my name. I opened it carefully. Inside was a single brass key and a folded note. "You still don't know everything." S. I stared at it for a long time. The letter trembled slightly in my hand, not from fear, just fatigue. Maybe it was Silas, maybe it was someone else, maybe it was bait. I'd lived too long in shadows to assume curiosity was safe. I walked to the fireplace and dropped the note and the key inside. The flames took both quickly. I didn't need every answer. I just needed peace. I turned off my phone, opened my laptop, and began to write, not about Ronan, not about revenge, not about legal filings or betrayal, but about rebuilding, about how surviving was its own kind of victory, about how some wars don't end. We just stop fighting them. I didn't burn the bridge. I just stopped walking toward it. Some people say healing is a quiet thing, but for me, it was messy, loud, public. I didn't walk out of that storm with a perfect smile or some grand lesson wrapped in a bow. I walked out with bruises, a fire in my chest, and the kind of clarity that only comes after losing almost everything, except yourself. If you're watching this and you've been through something similar, someone tried to silence you, gaslight you, take what you built and make you feel like you were the problem, I want you to hear me clearly. There's a moment in every battle where you have to decide, am I going to shrink to survive or stand up to be free? I chose freedom, and it cost me. But what I gained? My voice, my dignity, my peace. And that is worth more than anything Ronan could ever steal. Let me ask you something. Have you ever ignored a red flag because you hoped love would be enough? Or stayed silent when you should have screamed? Let's talk about it. Drop a comment below. Just a simple 1 if this hit close to home. Or tell me what city or state you're watching from. And hey, if you didn't like this story, tell me why. I'm listening. That's what this space is for. Real people, real healing. If this story moved you, even just a little, don't forget to subscribe. There's more where this came from. And somewhere out there, someone needs to hear your story too. Until next time, stay strong, stay sharp, and never apologize for rising.